Hi, welcome back to the Getting It Wrong podcast, where we create a safe space for getting it wrong because getting it wrong is the first step to getting it right. I'm Gabrielle,
I'm working.
and we are so happy you guys have joined us today. We're going to have a recap of our last episode, then jump into our article and topic of the day. So,
Mhm.
last time we talked about the book Women Who Run with the Wolves,
Mhm.
and that's basically the wild woman archetype. We've talked about archetypes on our podcast before, so you guys should definitely go listen to our previous episodes. And I remember at the end of the episode, we were asking, um, what woman, what type of woman do you think of? Who do you think of when you think of the wild woman archetype?
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember your answer.
I do. I remember thinking that when I hear wild woman, especially when it comes with the title, like Women Who Run with the Wolves, I think of like disheveled. I think of someone with like crazy hair, someone that's unkept. And yeah, that was my first take on it. But afterwards,
Gotcha.
we had a different take.
Yeah, we did have a different take. The wild woman archetype is basically a woman who can basically work with what she has. She can create and she's passionate and she does what she can with what she's got. She doesn't let the world define her. She
Hmm.
creates her own path. And I remember saying the person that comes to mind for me is Maya Angelou. Um, I love Maya Angelou. Um, she's just the type of woman that no matter what she did in her past, no matter what happened to her, she
Hmm.
created a life for herself. She still did whatever she wanted, no matter what anyone perceived. So Maya Angelou is my wild woman archetype. um, but today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. It does have to do with life and like creative and passion and things like that and
Hmm.
your mindset. But we are going to get into a great article and we're also going to talk about some mental mantras a little bit later. But
Hmm.
Morgan, you can take it away with the article we have for today.
Okay. Okay. So now I came up with, well, I didn't come up with, but I wanted to kind of get some more information about the creative process. We'll tell you why a little bit later. Um, but I ran into a blog post and it was under thinkling.com. So basically, I ran into the scientific creative process, but I've heard as like someone that considers themselves a creative, I've also heard of like another creative process. So I'm going to kind of get into both. The first one was from the article, and I'll give you like a rundown, and you tell me what you think about this one. And it's more of like the scientific, like there's science to back this one. So for starters, there are 5 stages of this creative process. It starts with preparation, which makes sense. It's where you're gathering the information, you're doing your research. Then the second stage is incubation, and that is when you're allowing yourself to take in all of the knowledge that you researched, and you're just processing it. The third step is illumination, and that is kind of where what people think of when you're thinking of creativity. It's your aha moment, it's where the idea comes into play. Then you have 4, which is evaluation, and that's where you start to like develop your plan, and get ready to like execute the ideas. Then the fifth one is the fifth and final stage is implementation. And that's obviously where you implement the idea. So, for starters, Gabby, how do you feel about that process?
I think it's amazing because, you know, I'm a biology major and they
Mm-hmm.
beat the scientific method into us like it was
Mm-hmm.
no tomorrow. So I understand that there's a science to literally everything. And I'm like, okay, they broke down creativity, the process
Right,
of creativity to a science. And I eat
right.
that kind of stuff up. Like the only thing that it's missing is like in science,
Mm-hmm.
um, at the end, you have to, of course, after you implement the ideas, you have to have like a conclusion or like
Yeah,
analyze the conclusion of your plan so you can like make
very true.
changes or like switch it up the next time or something like that. But no,
Very
I love
true.
it. I love it.
Very true. Yes, I agree. I love how science and like philosophy and like I just love how everything intersects with one another. So I love that they
Yes.
agree. I agree with you that it's kind of awesome that they're putting it into like they're kind of fact checking it in a way
Hmm.
based on science. So I like that. And the implement well, that final stage that you talked about, I think you'll probably like the second one better. And I'm kind of like altering it a little
Okay.
because it comes with some like profanity, but
Okay.
I will
Trigger warning.
I'll
Wait,
replace
no.
I won't say it, I'll just
Explicit.
replace it. We'll
Okay.
get to it. I'll replace the profanity, but I think
Okay.
you'll catch on.
Okay.
So with this one, I was trying to figure out who is like the person that came up with it, but I don't know who to credit. I was trying to like research. I came across a few different people that said it, and I know I've heard it before.
Hmm.
One of the most recent people they said was like Rick Perry. I'm not familiar with him to be honest, but
Okay.
let me get into it.
Is it any relation to Katy Perry?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. So this one, I'm calling it the unofficial creative process. So with this one, it's like where you as the creative, this is your thought process while you're going through a creative process. You start off like, this will be awesome. Then the second step is, this is hard. Then the third step is, this is trash. Then the fourth step, you're like, I'm trash.
Hmm.
Then the fifth step, this might be okay. And then the sixth stage is where you're saying this is awesome again.
Oh yeah.
Do you feel like you can relate?
No, definitely. I feel like the this
Mhm.
is awesome is when you have, for me, the this is awesome is
Mhm.
like when I have this grandiose idea and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to
Right.
implement this idea. It's going to be amazing. But when I
Right.
actually start doing it, I'm like, okay, it's harder, harder than I thought it was going to be.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
I get into it and I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to toss it because whatever. I'm kind of
Mhm.
tired of it. And then I feel bad. I'm like, I tried to do something. Wasn't able to complete
Yeah.
it. Like, I feel bad about myself, but I feel like eventually I end up picking it back up. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so I kind of knew what I did wrong the first time. So it's like, I'm trying something a little bit different this
Right.
time.
Right.
So it's like, this might be okay. It's that step. And
Right.
then once it finally comes to fruition, it's like, okay, this is
It's
actually awesome.
awesome. I love it
Yes,
again. Yes,
exactly.
I completely agree. It's like, and I think knowing this is so important, especially for creatives. And I think this is also a part of why we did this podcast. And
Hmm.
it's a part of what our next season will touch on a little.
Hmm.
Because when people get to that stage where like this is trash and I'm trash, a lot of people stop there because you think your idea isn't good, but like if you keep going, you'll get to the next phase where you're like, maybe it was trash before, but I pushed through and now you're like, it might be okay. And then you're like, it's great. Like imagine the
Yes.
ideas that would not exist right now if people stopped at the this is trash stage.
Yes. And you know what helps with the creative process? Being delusional.
Mhm.
I'm
Oh,
going to say the number one thing. Never mind. That's baby girl in the background.
okay, we'll continue.
The number one thing that helps me through my creative process is being delusional. Like, I cannot be around realistic people when I have a delusional creative idea because
Mhm.
people are going to be like, why? Like, I don't get it. Like,
Mhm.
are you sure? Like, but no,
Mhm.
like anything anybody was unsure of, but I was sure of, I was able to do it.
Preach.
So take your delusional creative ideas and get to work. And when you get to
Yep.
the I'm trash stage, don't give up.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because like what you said is important because not only can you feel like it's trash and that can come from within, but it can also come from outside.
Hmm.
That's so important to like be careful who you're sharing your ideas with. And sometimes you might not want to share initially.
Yeah,
So that's
that's
fair.
definitely something I've been
Especially if
working
you know
on.
you're in the stage where you don't like it much, don't I wouldn't. I wouldn't go too far unless you're with people that encourage you, then that's a
Hmm.
good point to talk to them. But like, yeah, I would keep it under wraps for a little while until you get to
Exactly.
it's all right. The it's okay stage.
Yeah. And even so, I want to add just a little bit more onto that because
Hmm.
be very strategic about who you share things with. It cannot,
Hmm.
even if it's your friend, like sometimes you can't share things with your friends
Mm,
because let's say you're trying to move from this stage to this stage. This friend has always known you as this, right?
mm,
So you're
hmm.
trying to move over here. But even if your friend has good intentions or is not trying to be negative, they're not going to see this vision over here because they only see this over here.
Yeah,
So that's what I've been learning, especially when it comes with sharing things with family. It's like they might not see the vision because they only see
yeah,
you from a certain perspective.
yeah.
So sometimes you have to keep things to yourself just to keep the vision and the dream alive. It's not like trying to be super secretive or anything, but it's
Right.
just keeping
That's
your dreams alive.
That's so true. That reminds me of like people on social media. I caught some people saying like they wanted to be influencers on social media and how they deliberately blocked their family because they knew their family was only going to see them a certain way. Um, yeah, and I think that happens with a lot of people. They don't want their close people to see them trying to level up, like in the process of trying to like level up because they only have that one idea that of how that person is. And even
Hmm.
like I remember Issa Rae saying something about how every time she would go back home or like go with her friends that she grew up with, they'd be like, oh, you still making them videos, and then look at her now. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I definitely see where you're going with that.
Yeah. So just keep going, never give up, be strategic about who you share things with. And this
Mhm.
was nice. I love seeing the creative progress, not progress, the creative process broken down in a scientific way. But I
Mhm.
also do want to make note that these things happen like intrinsically. And I think it's super
True.
interesting how like your inner knowing, or let's call it spirituality, it always comes before science. Science is just like the explanation of what happens
Exactly.
internally. And I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. So
And
cool article. Where'd you find this?
it was a blog. It was called. Let me make sure I'm quoting it right. I think it was called thinkling.com. Hold on now.
Somebody gonna match my freak?
That was me looking up me watching your video. Thinkling.com.
Like Thinkling.
Exactly.
Okay, Thinkling. Okay, Thinkling. I like to think like that. I'm gonna have to hit them up and see what other articles and blogs they have. That was
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of it it makes me want to go on a tangent. Do you guys want to hear me go on a quick tangent before we get into our
I'm
next
here for
section
it.
for today?
Girl,
So
it's I messed up. It was Thing Link. Okay.
Thing Link,
Yeah.
like
Thing Link. Yeah,
Thinglink.
exactly. It's
Okay,
like I
so
have it
scratch
on too.
the previous one. It's
Yeah,
Thinglink. Interesting.
exactly.
I kind of like Thinklink better, but it's okay.
But
It's
back to your
fine.
tangent.
Back to my tangent. So I just sit and think sometimes, like for no reason. I just like to sit and think. And I just had this thought that I'm pretty sure a lot of us have had before, but my mind was literally just like breaking it down in a way that I've never broken it down before. And I literally had to write it down because I'm like, I feel like my brain is like downloading information right now. Like I'm receiving a download. So, of course, we've all heard the analogy of our minds being like computers.
Hmm.
So, if our minds are like computers, then we can, of course, program our mind like an
Yeah.
algorithm, like you can program an algorithm. So I was like, so we can program, let me back it up a little bit. A program can trigger an outcome
Right.
when it comes to technology. So if you're in your life and there's an outcome in your life that you don't like, then you can redo that program You can
Absolutely.
reprogram your mind to view the situation a little bit differently so it can change the
Mhm.
outcome and get you closer to your desired output.
Yeah.
And what else did I write down? I was like, the subconscious mind, it has a different syntax than our conscious mind. So syntax is basically like a language.
Mhm.
So our subconscious mind has its own syntax, its own language, and our conscious mind has its own syntax. So when it comes to wanting a certain outcome out of your life, sometimes in your conscious mind, you understand something, but it's something going on in your unconscious mind. It's a program in your unconscious mind that is creating a certain output that you can't, you can't think about. I don't want to say you can't think about, but you have to go really deep in order to figure out that
Mm.
program.
Mhm.
And what else did I write? So if something is deeply embedded, we need to figure out that syntax, like the different syntax in order to tap into our unconscious mind in order to reprogram to get our desired result. And I realized that the different syntax is our memories.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to think how I can break this down. I wrote it, but I want to break it down a little bit better. So, in order to tap into our subconscious, our unconscious mind, we have to tap into our memories. I know
Mhm.
memories can be foggy, fadey, but that's okay because we can change our memories. So, for example, so I've been working on my attachment style. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like
Yeah.
avoidant,
Mhm.
anxious, whatever. So, in order to work on my attachment style, I realized that I have a core wound. I don't want to give out my core wound, but let's say I'm going to give
Okay.
a random one. So, let's say your core wound is like an anxious attachment style. And so I
Right.
know that I have core wounds that I can't like see in my everyday conscious world. So, I go back into my memories about where this core wound started or something that's very strongly linked to this core wound.
Mhm.
So let's say I have a core wound of being abandoned. What else did I write? Okay, so if you can think of 10 examples of your memory that are opposite of what your wound is, and you
Mhm.
think about it when you wake up and when you go to sleep, because when
Mm.
you wake up, you can tap into your subconscious mind easier. And when you go to, and before you go to sleep, that's when you can tap into your unconscious mind a little bit easier. So if you wake up and you go over the 10 things in your memory that go against your core wound, and before you go to sleep you think those 10 things again, you can literally reprogram your mind that way to overcome your core wound to help heal your attachment style.
You better preach. You better
And also,
preach out here.
and
Okay, go
these are
ahead.
all random things that I'm like, I had a random thought, so I had to like write it down really quick before I
Yeah.
forget. But I also wrote down that we are creatures that crave pleasure because I always despised when people would say, you don't like stop chasing pleasure or like this, and that. Like chasing pleasure is what's keeping you not from reaching your goals, right? I never believed that, or I didn't know why I didn't believe it, but I never believed that. So I had a thought and I'm like, I realized that everything can be viewed as pleasure. So let's say that drinking is someone's pleasure, right?
Mhm.
If you chase that pleasure, that's not really um, taking you to where you need to go, right? In order to get your desired outcome. But let's say um, you being healthy is a pleasure, right? Like people love
Mhm.
being healthy, right? So you have
Yeah.
to chase a different pleasure to get your desired outcome.
Yeah. I think um I don't I don't think people's problem is chasing pleasure. I think people's problem is using pleasure as a replacement for healing
But you
in a
have to find
sense.
pleasure in healing. You have to
Yeah.
find pleasure in the things that meet your needs in healthy ways that move you forward instead of chasing pleasures that hold you back.
So it's more like, so if I'm understanding you right, you're saying like choose a pleasure that suits you.
Yes. Choose a
Okay.
pleasure that can move you forward instead of moving you backwards. We're humans. I
Right.
think we all crave pleasure. I feel like pleasure is what keeps us moving, what keeps us going. But as you just have to be cognizant of what type of pleasure that you're choosing. There's that
Yeah.
cheap pleasure, like that what they call it, those cheap dopamine hits. That
Right.
like looking at your
Right.
phone, you have to choose something that gives you that dopamine, but also moves you forward in life.
Right. Right.
So I feel like it's
Okay.
okay to chase pleasure. You just need to understand what pleasure will move you forward and what pleasure will move you back, and
Hmm.
choose the forward moving pleasure.
Agreed. Agreed. Just trying to improve your life. And can I take a step back? Because I love
Hmm.
what you described before. It was
Hmm.
like a breakdown. In my mind, the way I heard it, it was like a breakdown of what therapy is all about. They want you to like go back and revisit like your core memories. They want you to, because they're trying to figure out what truths you're telling yourself. They're trying to
Hmm.
figure out what truth are you telling yourself that you live by, and if you can change that and alter it for the better, like you said, that's dope, and that's how you heal. So
It's
I like that.
it's
And I
literally breaking down how you heal to a science.
literally and as a matter of fact, Gabby, like I remember you describing a way that you did it for yourself. Like, you remember how you said I can't remember what episode it was, but how you said you used to hate the smell of lavender.
Yes, I hated the smell of lavender because
Yeah.
it used to bring back bad memories that would
Right.
cause me pain, but I literally started associating lavender with everything that was positive, and that was literally one of my favorite scents, my favorite plants. It's
And you like rewired your own brain to like think of it and associate it differently.
exactly. These are things that we all know how to do. I feel like the world just conditions you to not be in
Right.
tune with yourself and your
Right.
body. So it's like you can't, it's like you forget.
Hmm.
You forget who
It's
you
true.
are. You forget how much
You
power
get
you
so
have.
distracted.
Yes.
Yeah.
You forget how much power you have over your own life and over your own thoughts and your own
Hmm.
feelings. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that we're already in the second session of what we want to do today. We wanted to go over our favorite
Yeah.
mental mantras of 2024, but it doesn't have to be 2024. It can just be our favorite mental
Of all
mantras
time.
of all time. Okay,
Yeah.
because I have some more things that I want to dish out. And I didn't intend on saying all these things on this episode, but we forgot to say at the beginning that it's our last episode of the season.
It is. It's our last episode
Burr, burr, burr,
for
burr,
the season.
burr. Well, it might be a sad thing for you guys. But the good news is that we will be back in March 2025, and we'll tell you more about that later. Let's get back to our
Hmm.
mental mantras.
Hmm.
Um, what else do I have written down? Okay, so I've written down it's one thing to understand it intellectually. I was like, ooh, do I want to say this on the podcast? I'll say it. I'll say it. It's the last episode of the season. You guys are going to get the real.
Uh-oh.
I said, I was moving forward for a while, but then got stuck. And even though I've been able to move, I know that I've been able to move forward in the past. There was something in my way that I literally couldn't see. I couldn't identify it. I was stuck in the intellectual phase for a while. I was able to properly identify what it was.
Hmm.
Oh, until I was able to properly identify what it was that was holding me back, I couldn't move forward. So I think we've talked about this before about how naming something and identifying something
Yeah.
can help you move past it. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so good to be in tune with yourself. It's so good to journal. It's so good to be in touch with how you're feeling. You know, in therapy, the reason it works so well, they make fun about it in movies, but how does that make you feel is such an important question.
Yeah.
It's so important because I use that in every aspect of my life now. It's like, I want to do this, but how does this make me feel? Feelings aren't
Mhm.
everything. You do need logic, but I feel like the initial thing needs to be, how does that make you feel? And then and depending on how it makes you feel, you can be logical after that. Okay, this makes me feel good. However, this, and that, and this, and that. But I feel like the most important thing is, how is this making you feel? Because that's how you know if you're aligned with it or not. If something is not making you feel good, you can be like, okay, is it making me feel good? Making me feel bad because it's not what I need, or is it making me feel bad because it's just an uncomfortable position before I get to where I need to be. So
Yeah.
just being
It's a
in
good start.
tune. Yeah,
Mhm.
how does it make you feel is a very good start. We took a little break, but we're back. So I do want to backtrack a little bit about what I talked about, reprogramming your mind to heal,
Mhm.
because I feel like people are going to have questions. They're like, okay, so this is how you do it, but so like, how long do I have to do it? Like how
Mhm.
long do I
Mhm.
have to repeat these things when I wake up and when I go to sleep? Um, and I do want to say that you don't have to do everything perfectly in order for it to work. I'm going to say that because my first memory of doing this was when I was probably a teenager, and I wasn't doing it perfectly. I wasn't doing it every night before. I wasn't doing it every morning when I woke up and every morning when I went to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think you can put a time limit on it either, just because it depends on what exactly you're trying to heal from, like how deeply it's embedded into your
Yeah.
subconscious, or how traumatic the event was, or whatever it is you're trying to heal from. But I don't feel like you should make it a long, arduous process. I hope I used that word correctly. Um, I feel like you can make it fun. When I was younger, I kind of just did it whenever I thought about it. You know, whenever I thought
Yeah.
about it, and it's not just remember like sorry, let me get my thoughts together. It's not just going back into your past memories in order to reprogram your mind. You can also create new memories and reprogram your mind as well.
Yeah.
That's what I did when it was with the lavender thing. So like I would
Mhm.
go out to stores, and then like, oh, I would see these cute lavender plants, and I'll go up to them and smell them and be like, oh, this smells so wonderful. This is amazing. I can't wait to have lavender in my home, and it's so beautiful. I would take pictures, and I'm like, it's such a beautiful day. Look at this
Mm.
beautiful day and this lavender plant. And I would just make a big deal about it, every time I
Yeah.
saw a lavender plant. And I feel like eventually, after doing it so many times, I never timed it. I just did it until I no longer felt negative
Yeah.
feelings when I was around the
It's
lavender
like
plant.
it's kind of like you heard them say like the neural pathways, like you're literally creating different or alternative neural pathways. So like
Yes,
once this association has changed for you, I think that's essentially when you don't have to like you're naturally just going to think about something different in
exactly. Yes, bringing
association
the
with that
science
issue or
into it.
that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yes. So once all your neural pathways have, what'd you call it? They've
I
okay,
can't
I'm gonna
remember.
be quiet. I'm gonna leave it alone.
The you've created new neural pathways.
Yes. Once you've created new neural pathways, they're complete. Um, then that's when the change happens. Like
Mhm.
you can't put a time limit on it. There might be an average time range. I do want to reiterate that I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. But there's some things that I do know. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm sharing with you guys today. And I hope that it's helpful for you guys. If there isn't anything that you want to add to that conversation, I can go ahead and move on to the mantras that I had, that
Mhm.
what I was supposed to be talking about.
Yeah, yeah, let's do the mantras.
Okay. I'm not even going to go into depth because I feel like they encompass pretty much everything that we just talked about, if I'm being
Yeah.
completely honest. Um, my number one, well, these aren't ranked in level of importance or anything, but my first one is, if you did it once, you can do it again.
Come on.
And this goes into forgetting who you are, because I feel like as children, we are born knowing. And then we get into adulthood and we forget.
Yeah.
And then I feel like we shame ourselves and guilt ourselves for not being able to do the things that we once did. But I just want us to remember
Mhm.
that just because we've been knocked down or not on the path that we thought we would be on, it is possible to get back on it. It's not too
Yeah.
late. Um, I'm going to get in a little bit of frequencies. So let's say in order to be on a certain path, you have to be on a certain frequency. So let's say something happens, it knocks you off that frequency, but that frequency doesn't just disappear. It's still there. You just have to figure out a way to tune your frequency again so you can get
Mhm.
back onto that frequency. And I feel like what we've talked about today, like the scientific method, when it applies to all things, you can apply the scientific method to getting on the path that you want to be on. You can apply the
Yeah.
scientific method to your life to get
Mhm.
back on the frequency, to get back on the path that you desire. So that is why I always remember that if I did it once, I can do it again.
I know that's right.
My number two is everything that you want wants you. And I kind of use that one as a pick me up because when you are working towards a goal and it doesn't seem like you're getting there as fast as you want to, or things aren't working out exactly how you thought it would,
Mhm.
um, I kind of use that as a mantra to keep myself going. So I want this. This is my desire, right? So if this is my desire, I feel like God puts things in your heart for a reason. Yes, you have to discern, but I feel like for the most part, God puts desires in your heart for a reason. And I feel like if that desire is in your heart, then as long as you don't forget who you are, as long as you're aligned, it will meet you. Your desire will meet you. Everything that you want wants you. That's how I use that mantra for myself.
Okay.
And my last one, which is my favorite one, I literally say this to my daughter all the time. And it's three things that help me move through this life.
Mhm.
Whenever I need a pick me up, whenever I'm going through anything, I always remember to trust in God, trust in yourself, and never give up. I feel like if you have no
Amen.
idea of the scientific method, those three things will help you get
Mm.
through anything.
Yeah,
Trust in God, trust in yourself, and never give up. And
absolutely.
that's all
I
I
got it.
got.
I
I don't
got
know if you have any
it.
mantras that you
I
say to
have
yourself
any
that you'd want to share.
not that I can think of. You know what? I have like I set up like a morning mantra because like waking up in the morning can be hard. And I do have like a morning mantra on my phone where I just try to remember what my goals are in order to get me motivated to get started for the day. So,
Hmm.
like, a goal to be like, remember to be a good parent and to gentle parent in a sense today and to emotionally regulate well. Remember to I don't know, like the reason you're waking up every morning is to achieve your goals so your life can be better and can continue to improve. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like a mantra,
Like setting your
but
intentions for the day, which is
it
super
is
important.
setting my
That is
intentions for
super
the day.
important. It's kind of like how you said you do it that way, but other ways that people set their intentions for the day is like, maybe meditating or like
Hmm.
the way that I usually try to set my intentions for the day the night before. Like I'll like write in my planner like the night before like what I want to accomplish for the next day.
Yeah.
And so when I wake up in the morning, I kind of like look at my planner and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing
Hmm.
today. That's kind of
Right.
how I set my intentions. So yeah, that's so interesting. It's like we're all connected. Everything is the same, but everyone has their own path to get to
Yeah.
the same thing?
Yeah. Hmm.
I love getting to know how other people think. It's so interesting to me. I should have gone into neuroscience.
Ooh.
But
Yeah.
that's all that I have for the day. So, I mean, we could sit and talk to you guys all night, but we do have to go. Oh, but before we go, I do want to let you guys know. I know I said it briefly in the episode, but this is
Hmm.
our last episode of our season. Is this season 4? I
I think
think
so.
we're going to say it's season 4.
Yes.
And
Season 4.
season 5 is going to start March 2025. And we're
Yep.
going to change things up a little bit, or maybe a lot.
Yes.
Yes. What are you going to say? What do you have to say?
You might have been getting into it, but I wanted to add, like, that's a part of why we talked about the creative process today.
Mm-hmm.
And because leading into season 5, Gabby had a great idea about how we were going to start. Did you want to share this part or not?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. About how we were going to tackle season 5. We're going to spice it up a bit by interviewing people and learning about their creative process and what motivates them, and specifically what they feel like they were getting wrong as they became successful and how they got it right.
Exactly, because getting it wrong is the first step to getting it
Mhm,
right. So we're going to have more guests,
mhm,
creators, business owners sharing their creative process, and like you said, sharing how they got it wrong and how they got it right.
exactly.
And we do have another idea. I'm kind of scared to say it out loud because I don't know if we're going to do it. Well, we
Okay.
have to do it because we asked you guys, I remember on social media, would you guys be
Mhm.
interested in us putting out a video on how you guys can make and create your own podcast?
Hmm. Okay.
And it was an overwhelming yes. So I feel like it's something we have to do. I think we'll enjoy doing it, but I'm trying not to let being a perfectionist hold me back because I have ideas on how I want to do it, but we're going to get it
Yeah.
out to you guys regardless. So stay tuned. And now we can wrap it up. So, of course, like I said, we could talk to you guys all night, but we gotta go. It's
Mhm.
getting late. We'll catch you guys in season 5. Bye.
Bye.